Hello and welcome to the Music Mind Meld. This is a new series where we're chilling, hanging out, talking music. Myself, I'm Nick Wever. To my left here is Bilay Badoe. How,
Badoe.
however, I'm trying to pronounce it all the different ways that other people pronounce it. Billy,
Badoe, bad dude.
bad dude. Whatever. And of course, to my right, Spencer Shewen from RiverFest
Hello.
and various other endeavors. So we want to kind of just chat and hang out and talk about a little bit about our musical past, where we came from, what inspires us to do what we do, and just kind of shoot the shit. So welcome and thanks for joining us. And yeah. So I guess to start off, Blair, I'll start with you. What first got you into involved in music?
I guess it was like, from a young age, my dad and stuff, doing piano lessons and stuff like that. And I just continued with music throughout. And obviously when I get older, you join bands and you do stuff like that. And like, you're always around shows. And then it's like when at least for me, when I got to, the college stage or whatever, it's like you have to pick your career for the rest of your life. It's like, oh, great. So for some reason, I still picked music. So I'm still here, yeah. So it's like what got me into music is the same reason I'm still here. It's just passion, addiction, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
And Spencer, same question.
It's a pretty broad question, and I could tell you a really long story about how I ended up where I am right now. But for me, my mom loves to tell this story about when I was a little kid. They asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said I want to be the guy that picks the songs on the radio. So I guess that was the actual beginning, and then for me, it was almost circumstance that I ended up doing what I'm like, getting into this field and deciding to do it. I was working at Pita Pit downtown Guelph when I was 17. And we used to sneak in the Jimmy Jazz on Monday nights to see Paul McLeod, and became friends with the staff there. They didn't know I was underage, and the day I turned 19, they hired me to work there. So, and then just being exposed to all the shows that were happening there and the people that were working them and stuff like that, it just kind of went from there.
Sure, that's a great history, and there's definitely a lot of interconnected stories, I think, between Jimmy Jazz and all three of us, and all the various places downtown. So.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's funny too. I mean, being 17 and kind of going to bars because it was pretty lax back then. Like, I feel I was probably one of the only people of my friends that I knew who actually waited till I was 19 to go to a bar.
I started going when I was like 16, 17, yeah.
And when I was working at the Jimmy Jazz, my older sister brought my younger sister who was 18 into the bar, and I just kind of was like, okay, I guess I'll just have to look the other way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Back in the
day. So I guess we've kind of like talked about what got you into it and everything. What's kind of stuck out for you? I guess in the last little while, we've all had a lot of time to kind of reflect on, where we've come from and all that. What's kind of been sticking out for you most recently, as far as like how things have been changing in your industry or in your world? Or it's a pretty broad question, I know, but is there anything that's kind of been glaring?
I mean, the hardest thing right now is just COVID and not knowing when and if things are going to get back to a normal. In the festival world, it's I feel like the target keeps moving. It keeps getting later and later and later. Last year, when this all started, we were like, okay, we'll have to cancel this year, but 2021 we'll be back. Now we're, nothing official's been decided yet, but like it's looking less and less likely that we're going to be able to run that they're going to let us have 5,000 people in a park come end of August. So that for me, like lately, is the thing I've been noticing. And just for bands, it's really difficult for the bands and the crew and everybody. People have lost their entire livelihood, and they're just waiting. Like it's just this never-ending wait for people, and I don't know. That's I guess the main thing right now.
Oh, for sure. I'll pick up off that, I guess. It's like, especially what you said, like the weight, but also I think it's the thing that maybe what's sticking out is like people are, I don't want to say people, but like a lot of people are forgetting how much the art industry actually impacts, like, especially like crews, like from sound techs to light techs to case pushers to everything that makes actual shows happen. it's not just the bands, or you're looking at like the festival and you're looking at like how much money a festival brings in, but you're not really looking at all the other jobs that are getting done. So as you're saying, like, yeah, people are waiting to go back to a new normal and stuff like that, and it keeps getting further and further away. As like a lot of people maybe or don't know, but it's like I'm kind of like in the middle, as in like sometimes I'm bummed out, but sometimes I'm very optimistic, as in like I keep saying like, yeah, maybe this is a time to actually reinvent how we pursue and, you know, go forward and combat it, and like, you know, maybe actually taking control of our careers completely. So
Mhm.
if something like this happens again, it's not like all of us are kind of, well, screwed.
Yeah, and I think it's been brought up with the level playing field or whatever else, and it's kind of level it out. And I get asked often about, you know, when we're gonna have shows again, or what's, you know, what's gonna happen. And I think there's just kind of this lack of appreciation before for the industry. It was just like, oh, you just throw a show and it's easy, right? You just do that. And now it's, when people are asking, they say, well, you know, who's controlling vaccinations? How are we gonna get people to a show? How do we bring them this music and whatever else? So is this whole world's been flipped upside down, and it's not just losing a job, it's losing an entire career.
Yeah. And I also like going off that is like I feel like our careers too are different being in the fields we are, you know, being in the music industry or art industry. It's not something that's looked at the same as a lot of other careers. And so as you're saying, it's like, yeah, I feel like we're just, yeah, left to the side type of deal, or people maybe don't understand how it is to, let's say, be an artist or something like that. There's a lot of like, not saying that it's different from anything, but like the mental struggles and stuff like that, and especially like not being able to be in front of people or get your art out, which is your soul, and then it's really changing a lot of stuff. So the isolation is, yeah, it's getting to a lot of people.
Yeah, and it gets said a lot in the circles that we're probably in, but a lot of the like the wider people probably don't realize that like the live events industry was the first one
Yeah,
to get shut down, and it's going to be the last one that's allowed to reopen.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be scary. But I also wanted to say that like I think a couple positives that have come out of this is I think people on the other side of it are now are going to be able to appreciate much more like that they when they can go to a show and they can have that experience live. And also something in my world, in the festival world, that has never been a thing up until this happened was over last summer, festivals started talking to each other.
Yeah.
And there started being these like weekly phone calls across the country with Canadian festivals and things like that. People started sharing information. They started working together. That industry's typically in the past been very close. Like you keep your cards close to your chest. You don't want to tell that other festival about what you're doing because you don't want them to copy you, or you don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just want to be able to keep it close. So it's opened up, and it's probably like this across the whole industry. I think is like it's opened up a lot of what's the word I'm trying to think of, like
Collaborations or
collaboration, teamwork. It's just made the community itself more open and close to each other as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody's starting to realize that it's like, hey, like our industry's not that big, and Canada, even though it's very vast, it's not that big in terms of our world. So as you say, yeah, people are coming together. Even us all sitting here, it's like, you know, it's like we all, even from being from Guelph and us all knowing each other, it's like we all kind of did separate things, but as you said, like coming together, it's the same reason why we're all sitting here right now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's something that like all of us have sort of talked about in various capacities, and we like when we had Summer Heard all those years ago as well, and all these different events that I think I always find them so great because there's this whole crew of people just working towards one thing, and the event goes off, and then it's just like, okay, we can kind of get ready for that next year again, right, and get on that schedule. So
Yeah.
It's great seeing that kind of collaborative effort, and I think it's, you know, something that musicians and artists are good at doing, making that pivot.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I guess on that note, with you know the future of festivals and events and all that kind of up in the air, is there, I guess from your perspective, is there anything that you've been working on kind of aside from that, or even working towards, you know, what that next festival might even look like? Just rough ideas or.
Yeah. So we're always, I think the name or like the game everyone has to play right now is having like a plan A and then maybe a plan B and C for everything. So, you know, obviously for RiverFest for 2021, our plan A is RiverFest. Our plan B might be having a smaller event, depending on what we're allowed at that point. It's hard for anyone to go forward with an event that's as big as that and bigger. Like, I don't know how Osheaga's planning on happening this year, but
They're just getting the money. That's it.
They got the funding.
Yeah. Buy tickets now.
Yeah. But it's hard to take that risk to put all the work into it. It's a year worth of work to run an event like that. And then, but like, for us, if we were to find out in July that we can't run our festival in August, that'd be really, really bad for us. So we're trying to, in the next few weeks, we're going to make a decision and then we'll figure out what we're doing. But we're probably going to end up having a smaller event, for like locals only kind of thing,
right?
On the RiverFest weekend, and then plan out some other smaller events throughout the year, to try and keep the community engaged. And for us, it's like we do what we do because we want to. Same reason you guys do what you do. You want to bring art to the community. You want to make a difference in people's lives, and make Guelph or Elora or whatever a better place to live for people.
Yeah.
That's what I feed off of. I'm sure that's what you guys feed off of too.
Most
so
definitely.
yeah, so we took the past year off. We didn't really program anything, but this year we're gonna try to do what we can within the parameters that we're allowed to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's always ever changing, of course. So.
Yeah, forever changing.
And I think one of the things too that I keep on thinking about amidst everything, because everyone's kind of glued to their screens. I think one of the bigger challenges that I've been noticing is that people just are not wanting to tune in anymore. And I don't know if that's just kind of across the board. I don't know if it's just, people are regulating what they watch. Just like for an example, I find that on Mondays when we do the Metal Mondays with Rick, we have a bunch of people signing in, but then you won't hear from them for like a week sort of thing. So
Right.
I feel that it's kind of almost balancing, what people want and not overdoing the virtual stuff. So it's definitely kind of a challenge to do that.
It's like, you're in a rock. It's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, as in like, you want to be supporting as many artists and everything as you can, but also to, like, on the other end of it, it's not just about like getting an artist there, but it's like, how can we as promoters or, the other side of it, like showcase that person's art in a way that's engaging for somebody who's just clicking on Facebook or something like that. And that's, it's definitely, it's a challenge. As in like, this is our new quote unquote normal, which we didn't even want to be in. We're just forced in. So it's an interesting thing. And as you said, getting people to engage, and then something like Facebook takes down our ability to do that, and then we have to switch somewhere else, and then they take down the ability. It's like, it's interesting, but as Spencer was saying, it's like you just got to keep pushing forward, and then different plans, reinventing stuff, and
Go back to the Beatles rooftop shows.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not really sure where to go from here, to be honest.
I got it. It's like, at least, let's say, like pushing forward in terms of the music industry, right? At least for me personally, it's like I'm really focused on, like, we all do different things, right? And that's what I like about this discussion. And for me, doing like smaller shows and stuff with you is like, not too much festival stuff. It's almost about like kind of me, like how I feel about it. It's like we have to kind of reinvent, or I want to try to reinvent the wheel of how we were doing shows before. As we were saying, like the whole thing that has happened with COVID is it's brought us all closer together, and like a lot of promoters can work together into festival people and all this. It's like if we look at just an example of Guelph, it's like how many promoters do we have in Guelph, and then how many shows do we have happening in Guelph on one night? It's like with 6 shows with a community of our size, if we're not all talking, then it's like that's kind of, at least for me, what I saw was us getting to the point where it's not oversaturation, but people are getting too used to having a show. It's not really. I always kind of feel that we lost like the whole special feeling about going to a show, because it's like you're walking anywhere, any sort of venue, quote unquote, you could just walk into.
Friday, Saturday,
Restaurant has somebody playing. This has somebody playing, and then it's like even like Nick or some people might know this about me. What my beef was like, to me, I feel like we almost lost the as like somebody who does bars and shows. It's like we lost that feeling and that passion of being able to provide a good space for artists, which also provides a good space for our customers. Like something as small as like lighting or making sure your speakers are working properly or having a good soundboard. It's like that type of crap, like where it's like, we laugh about it, but it's like, how many venues do you go to? It's like, oh, that speaker doesn't really work. You might have a monitor over here. It's like, do you have a sound guy? Oh, what? It's like, and then also with that being said, it's like, if we're not doing our due diligence there, it's like, then you're beating down the artist too, where it's like, oh, an artist is like, yeah, give them $20. It's like, there you go, pat on the ass type of deal.
Yeah, and then those artists aren't going to want to come back. And
yeah, and it hurts our communities,
your customers
right?
are going to have a bad experience because the sound isn't good or whatever. Like, it's all...
Yeah.
I agree. We've all dealt with... We don't want to name any names. We've all dealt with probably the same venues in town. And
I still remember that feeling of just like,
half the sound
what?
systems working.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't have what?
The fuck? And then it's like, on top of that, it's us talking to, like, even if you're just thinking, not just like our community, but like Canada as a whole, like especially with our, let's say, how we want to present Canadian art to people. It's like, if we can't even provide a good speaker system, why would you ever come here? That's how I feel, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it goes less and less. And then like, even for us, it's like, I love all cities, love everything in Canada, but it's like, you see Hamilton, how they came up, it's like because they put in the effort and they cared. And then for us as promoters and bar people and festival, it's harder to get the artists that we want to come to our community because we're not doing the job on the back end. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I was an artist, it's like, of course I'd go to Hamilton over, you know, a city like, or like, yeah, Guelph. It's like, okay, if I go to Guelph, I have 6 shows I'm competing with. Maybe there's a sound system, maybe there's not, something like that. Or I could just go to Hamilton, which, I mean, I hope that with my rant or ramble or whatever it is, I'm hoping that coming out of COVID, we could do better as a group. Community.
Don't move to Hamilton.
Please don't move to Hamilton. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, Nick, you've been doing shows for, I know you're hosting, but you've been doing shows for, what, 10 years now? 11?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
it's I mean, it's definitely been interesting looking back over the history and just seeing all the places change and whatever else, from, you know, throwing shows in the Jimmy Jazz and Shadow to moving up to, well, vinyl and whatever else. But it's interesting. So, you know, we've run into and worked with venues who are so keen about wanting to do shows, and they're saying, you know, we're going to put all this promotion into it, and you walk in, they're like, oh yeah, we don't have a sound system.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I think, like, you know, Aaron Dale and Brian McNeil and all of us have kind of all talked about different ways to, you know, bring the community together. And then I remember when, you know, Aaron started Music Lives in 2014 or 13 or whatever that was that he was starting it. And
time flies, eh?
Yeah, and just thinking of that, and we had that little office space beside the post office with Kelly and whatever else. So it's interesting kind of seeing all that. And like for me, I can't help but like, you know, be all nostalgic about all the shows we've done together, or, you know, whatever else too, and seeing all the venues that we've kind of gone through. But
there's been some epic shows, and yes, epic spaces.
Yeah.
Aquarius, Cafe Aquarius. Yeah. Like, yeah, there's so many good places, like, for sure. Do you have any memorable show? Like, what is like a show moment or a show that sticks out in your head?
Because we talked about this before, I was thinking about it, and aside from the festival, obviously, because that's like the coolest thing to do. But we had, like, I don't remember when it was. I think it was like 2008 probably. We had the Handsome Furs played at Jimmy Jazz for a Christmas show just because they were back in town to visit family and they wanted to do a show while they were here. And I think we packed like 200 people in there, and there was a lineup down the street. People were crowded around the windows in the front. Yeah, that was probably one of the coolest shows I've ever been a part of. Yeah.
That was pretty
you
awesome.
Guys?
Didn't you have Wooden Sky in the Jazz too?
We did Wooden Sky in the Jazz too. It's the same thing. People were lined up down the street.
Yeah.
They
like
went outside and played a set.
And then when the District, when they got electrocuted from the mics. I still remember that.
Yeah.
Oopsie. My favorite show? Actually, my favorite show is definitely Phineas. Where are they from? LA?
Yeah, the California.
California, LA. And they're a Christian metal band. And I did like, it was one of those shows where I was just like, really, Nick? It's like, I wasn't going to come down for it, anything. And I came down and the place was just rammed. And like just seeing like a packed metal show and then seeing the singer get up is like, we're gonna march for Jesus, and like the place just went nuts. And I was like, I've never seen like I had never seen that before in my life.
Yeah, that was pretty
Circle pits and like everything.
And then they had that show drop in New York, and they came back.
Yeah.
Because they had a show drop, and then they loved it so much they came back for another show
Yeah.
on like a Thursday or Tuesday or something
Yeah.
like that. It was another random day. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like I never knew that Christian metal could rock that hard. Like it was amazing. Like
And I think the funny thing for me booking that show is I think that was a band that I actually found on MySpace.
oh
Like,
no.
it was the band was that old and they'd been around for that long that they were still on MySpace when I first heard of them. And then I remember seeing them pop up. I'm like, they're still around? Cool, I'll book that.
Yeah,
Like,
they were great.
when I was like first getting into metal, and most of the metal I find when you're getting into metal at first, it's at least when I was getting into metal, it was a lot of like As I Lay Dying, Under Oath,
Mhm.
the Tooth and Nail, and Christian metal scene was the scene.
Norma Jean.
Norma Jean,
Yeah.
yeah, and then almost every band started getting associated with being a Christian metal band, so you had to be really careful. Like Feral to Freeway, I went on tour with them one time in the States,
Yeah.
and they got the tour package they got put with was a Christian metal band. Where before the shows, these guys were, and I've got no issue with anything that anyone is doing, but we were not expecting them to be opening and reading their Bibles before the shows, and then going into like a mosh pit or something like that. So it was really funny because Feral to Freeway's lyrics were so uplifting and positive and whatever else that they were like, oh yeah, you guys must be Christian metal. So we just go on, and the one venue we walked into just this giant Jesus face, just the whole wall. I was like, yeah, this is a Christian tour.
Yeah. It's gotta be awkward being drunk in a space like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like when you're on tour, you rely on your bandmate or whatever, the band you're on tour with to show you the ropes, and we're in the States, so
Yeah.
we don't know anyone. So little hookups like beer or whatever else. You had to be 21, and the drummer that Feral had with them was 19 or 20.
Yeah.
Muha. And so anytime we went to buy liquor from a grocery store, he had to wait in the van because they would ID everyone, and then we were just like, no, you can't. Really? Like in Canada, like we're Canadian, like we don't care. So it's interesting when you're with a Christian band who obviously doesn't drink or smoke or anything like that. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, so how are we gonna survive this 2 weeks in the States then?
Why yeah, we dig it. How about like, did you find any challenges? Like, what challenges do you have, Spencer, with like I know you managed a bunch of bands, right? With you, and you had Fortnite? Yeah.
Yeah,
Fortnite.
I've done a few things. I had so when I went to school at the Harris Institute in Toronto.
Mhm.
When I did that, I was interning at a record label called Rainbow Quartz Records, and the guy who was the Toronto office, there was only one guy that was the Toronto office, and I was his intern. It was a label based out of New York. Him and I just decided one day we were gonna like quit that and start our own label. So we did that. It was called Sunny Lane Records. We did like we put out like the first Donovan Woods album before anyone knew who he was. He was my roommate's best friend from university. Like that's
I
kind
was
of how
wondering where that connection was.
we got to know each other. Like the Ride Theory, who became Young Rival, we put out their album, stuff like that. So managed those bands. Realized that I wasn't very good at running a label, but I really liked doing shows.
Yeah.
And labels are hard, man. They're really hard. It's a money pit. Like it's hard to like make that work. But still wanted to support artists and stuff like that. So we did that. When I moved back to Guelph, I started Fortnite. I don't know if you remember Stuart Duncan. He used to do.
That's the name, yeah.
He used to do Out of This Spark. So he did all the shows at the E-Bar
Right. Okay.
for a while, and then when he moved, he actually moved to Toronto the same time I moved back from Toronto. So Heather, who was one of the managers at the E-Bar at the time, asked if I'd want to kind of like fill the gap of him leaving and start doing shows. So that's how kind of Fortnite started. And then through Fortnite, just with our friends from Guelph who were in bands and stuff, we kind of decided we were going to try to create a bit of a label with it, but not a label, like just like a brand, like a name that people could attach their albums to show that they're part of a group kind of thing. So with that, like I worked with Alana Gurr, Lowlands, Noise and the Ghost, Modern Field Recordings, bands like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was cool. I don't remember what your question was.
Challenges. Like,
Managing
well,
a
how about
label.
that? Do you think if you think about your label back then, you think about running a label now, do you think it's easier or harder?
I think labels have changed a lot. So when I started that label, the original label, Sunny Lane, we were on Fontana North
Yeah.
for distribution, which is Universal, and we had North American distribution, which was a big deal still then in 2005. Like people were still buying CDs.
Telling of the times.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy to get distribution, right? So that was a big win for us. I remember at the time. But now it's like there's no record stores. There's not as many record stores. People aren't buying as many albums.
Yeah.
I think so. What is a record label now? Like, I think record labels are still important because it's a grouping and they can get funding and they can help you as an artist, like, record your album and pay for some like marketing, things like that. Those things are all really important. But also like people can do it on their own. Like
That's to say.
it's possible just to like. To do it on your own, but then you like there are labels like Dynalone. We have a good relationship with them with RiverFest. Being on their label has its own benefits because then you get grouped in with all the other artists that are on there, and people will automatically like associate with them, and it gives you a lot of exposure that you might not be able to get on your own.
Dynalone's been around forever. Like
Do some changes too.
Yeah, a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Good. Was it Broken Social Scene who started it, or?
That was Arts and Crafts.
Oh, that's Arts and Crafts, yeah. They were wicked, too. They're still around, right?
Yeah,
Arts and Crafts? Yeah.
Still cooking.
Yeah. Oh, that was really good stuff. But yeah, I agree. Like, with right now, what's going on with, artists and everything, a lot of people, I feel like that's almost kind of where we're getting to, where it's like, I always use the term, which is pretty harsh, but it's like we sold art, almost. So it's like, I find like, a lot of artists, instead of forgetting, like, I feel like we're forgetting that whole thing about being in a label and being with a group of people and stuff like that. And now everybody just wants that big break on Spotify or something. And it's like, it changes it a bit. It changes a bit, yeah. But it's like, I agree with you. I think they're still relevant. And I think they're very important. I hope that, people are getting back to it. And
Yeah, I mean, I think the collective idea is definitely one that is kind of coming back around. And I think with independent artists, there's like with the emergence of Spotify and all those different platforms, there was a great opportunity to get out on your own.
Yeah.
But you're no one's an island. You can't always do that by yourself. Like you have to have a team around you. You've got to have other knowledgeable people because there's, I can't build a website. I can't take photos very well. All those sorts of things. I can do some editing and there's some things I can do, but that's just there's such a world of other things out there. So, I guess we should wrap and then restart. We're at the 2 minute, I think it was. So do we just have to like dump the footage and then? No.
Restart. Can I go to the bathroom?